Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions concerning this watch. And today we have a Rolex Certified Pre-Owned Oyster Perpetual Submariner date. Now, of course, this is the latest generation. This is the 126610, and it is the model that debuted in 2020. So in Rolex Oyster steel, which is 904 all stainless steel, 41 millimeters in diameter. You can see the watch is 12.5 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, just the case. 48.1 if we had the end length of the bracelet. The total distance across the wrist is 51.1, and we have a 21 millimeter spacing in between the lugs. Now, of course, we've got two locks on this clasp. More on that in just a moment. We're going to throw the watch on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, get a sense of the fit, the feel. Always going to try to remove the glove as much as I can without offending the powers that be and show you this watch on my wrist where the watch would naturally sit. Now, it's just fine for a wrist my size. I'd say you could probably wear this down to a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference, because if you look at the lugs, they're not actually beyond the edge of my wrist here, so I could go a little bit smaller. The nice thing about Rolex dive watches is that when you're talking about the subs and the sub dates, those entry-level Rolex divers, before we get into sea dwellers or deep seas, they're incredibly thin by the standards of dive watches, and that's really one of their calling cards and a feather in the cap that allows this watch to be worn with a tight sleeve or cuff if you want to pair it with formal attire. The watch is nicely balanced top to bottom by an Oyster bracelet. You can see the Oyster design, 3 links. It's got a conforming end link to mate it cleanly with the case. There's a taper down toward the clasp. The tops of the links are satinated and the flanks are polished. You can see removable links fixed in place by screws, and you can also see we've got irregular sized links in there in case you find yourself in between sizes. But one of the great advantages of the Submariner Oyster clasp is that we've got glide lock, so 20 millimeters of tool-free adjustment in 2 millimeter increments. There's 10 different stops. You could use this to fine-tune the fit a little bit, or you can pull it out all the way and use it over a dive suit or even just a thick winter coat or sweater if you're not diving. The clasp does have those 2 different locks. We've got the spring-loaded beak and hook system. Here's the beak, there's the hook in there, so it locks once, and then via the clamshell it locks again. You can see the clasp in this application, polished outboard, satin through the center, so we've got that double locking factor. We're going to roll over to the case. Oyster style case, squared off lugs, a broader spacing between the lugs than the previous sub. This one's 21 versus the previous 20. We got a trip lock crown in steel. You know that because there's 3 dots. They're all symmetrical. Oyster case back, screw down crown, 300 meters water resistant. Because of the ISO 6425 requirements, every dive watch has to be tested before it leaves the factory to 125% of what is actually on the dial. So just keep that in mind. This watch would have been robustly tested down to 375 meters. All right, now we've got the bezel, which is a 120 click unidirectional rotating dive style. Now you can see with the knurling, we've got a combination of polished and satin facets. It's both polished and satin, and if you look carefully, the break is between the top of the knurling and the bottom of the knurling. Incredible nuance. A very pleasing, refined, and yet precise unidirectional rotating action. Now you line that up with the minute hand. We've got this little sapphire capped bezel pearl in a bezel that is made of serochrome ceramic with platinum PVD'd or physical vapor deposition application to create all these indices and numerals. We'll do a lume shot, and you can see that Rolex has its own proprietary chromolite blue lume. Also note that the seconds hand is loomed. Not every dive watch has that, but you really should if you're making a diver, so you know in the dark and the depths whether your dive timer is running. Of course, I always prefer a dive bezel to a chronograph. I find it easier to read. It doesn't have the downstream service costs, and also I find that in most cases, something on timing with the chronograph is going to be an hour or less, so the bezel holds up. We have a black lacquer dial base. The hands and the indices are white gold, so they won't tarnish or oxidize over time. You can see the chapped ring inboard, the so-called confidence ring. It says Rolex, and then a serial number. Cyclops eye magnifier over a date. We've got a quick set date here, as well as a hacking seconds function, so you can see hacking seconds, stop the movement, synchronized to a reference time. We got a quick set system for the date, uses the latest Rolex caliber 3235, 28.5 millimeter diameter, bidirectional automatic winding, 70-hour power reserve, 31 joules, 4 hertz beat rate. It does meet the COSC chronometer standards as a movement, but then Rolex takes it, cases it up, and tests it to no worse than -2 + 2 seconds per 24 hours as a fully built watch. That's the superlative chronometer standard. The watch has a full balance bridge and a free-sprung balance for superior shock resistance. It has an overcoil hairspring, Breguet profile shaped by hand so that in any physical position the watch will keep excellent time. And then, of course, that hairspring made of a blue oxidized niobium zirconium alloy. Rolex calls Powerchron Blue immensely anti-magnetic. The watch also features a lot of small components and materials that most full manufacturers don't make, but Rolex is so integrated. They're making case, dial, clasp, bracelet, hands, movement, but also the shock protection, Paraflex, and even the lubricants used. I mentioned Oyster steel. This 904L high nickel steel is exceptionally resistant to corrosion, so even in the presence of sea salt, it will not corrode even if you do not rinse it. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details. Rolex Certified Pre-Owned watches are backed and authenticated by Rolex. Should any reconditioning be necessary, it will be to a Rolex Certified standard, and any parts invested, Rolex Factory Original. Should the initial retail box, paper, and accessory set still accompany the watch, it will be included with the sale. But no matter what, a Certified Pre-Owned box and paper set starts with an outer box, a leatherette travel pouch with suede lining, a warranty card that embodies the 2-year globally valid Rolex-backed warranty. Note, this is not a retail warranty, but backed by Rolex and actionable at any of its authorized points of sales and service. A leatherette wallet includes the warranty terms and conditions manual. A holographic hang tag marks this as a certified pre-owned Rolex watch, and a manual details Rolex's values as a company. The certified pre-owned program, care, feeding, service, and use of your Rolex, locations of points of sales and service, and details of Rolex.com. Rolex certified pre-owned watches are backed only by Rolex.